Assalamu alaikum and welcome to the Muslim View. I'm your host, Sarah Darsha. Now, the Muslim View was also known as previously as Al Magalla Al Arabiya. We're doing a transition after 7 years and calling it, finally, we've named it the Muslim View. We're here at the Hilton honoring a very, very special guest, Imam Webb. He is a convert to Islam. He converted in 1992 at the age of 19, and he's honored to have here in London today, and we hope you enjoy the show. Assalamu alaikum, Imam Suhaib. We're very, very honored to have you on the show today, The Muslim View. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
So, Imam Suhaib, can you tell us about your journey to Islam and how did you become a Muslim?
So I became Muslim almost 21 years ago through the music industry and through some personal friends and then reading. So three kind of components: personal relationships, popular culture, and then kind of an exposure to Muslims through different means.
Okay. And upon becoming a Muslim, what steps did you take to become an Imam?
Well, I didn't have the plans to be an imam. I started my degrees in education initially. I was just studying because as a convert, I didn't want to be like stupid white convert guy.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense.
I wanted to actually learn. So I didn't have that as a career goal. My career goal was to be a teacher.
Okay.
So it just kind of happened.
MashaAllah. Now, we've read that you are one of the 500 most influential speakers in the world. Tell me a little bit how you feel about that.
500 most influential
Muslim speakers, yes.
I mean, you know, accolades tend to slow people down, so I don't really pay a lot of attention to that kind of stuff.
Okay.
I think it's a great honor, but, you know, I think there's a lot of work to be done.
Good. How should we as Muslims balance our identity as Canadian Muslims?
So I'm not Canadian.
Or North American.
But I think that we need to look at our identity as something that never stops. Like it always grows, it always changes. And we need to base our identity on like basic universals, like justice, participation, bringing benefit to people around us, faith carriers. We carry a faith that we believe strongly about. Altruism is something that's very important in the Muslim community. So I think we need to look at our relationship as that of a universal set of principles that most people agree upon, and allow that to be what shapes our personality, and then it's shaded by our theology, shaded by our religious affiliation.
How can we as Muslims change the image that the media portrays of Muslims? What steps would you recommend that we take?
So an empty chair can't speak for you. So we need to be more active and more engaged in the broader community so that we're able to fill the void, right? Our void tends to be filled by either really crazy Muslim people who do egregious acts and kill people and terrorism, or it's filled by extreme bigots or right-wingers who also are trying. There's a battle for shaping the rhetoric about what the Muslim community and who the Muslim community is. And if we continue not to, I gave a talk about this khutbah, and it was even on CNN, called It's Code Red for Muslims, in the sense we need to take an active role in shaping how we're perceived by being active, right? By being there for people to see us. So, we have in America like 501c3 work, nonprofit work, which a large number of Muslims are involved. You have Iman in Chicago, you have Ma'ruf, which is a great inner city Muslim organization in Milwaukee. We need to also look at social justice issues, which are shared across others. We need to be involved in the environment and those kind of concerns, which are embedded on our religion, but tend to get blotted out because of the violence and the murder and the political situations that we find ourselves stuck in.
At the time of the Prophet, there was a lot of negativity upon him presenting his message. Now, how do you believe he would have reacted to what's happening to Muslims today?
So the Quran in the 52nd chapter, actually 42nd chapter, says, idfa billati ahsan, right? Tells the Prophet in the face of mounting opposition and continued personal attacks, give back which is better. Right? So even the whole cartoon issue, the reaction of the Muslim world, Muslim communities to the cartoons, have we forgotten, that the Prophet himself, when he was insulted, didn't react so viscerally. I don't think I could say how the Prophet would act now. I think I could talk about what he would want us to do, and we talked about that earlier, right? That, the beauty of Prophet Muhammad, all the prophets, and great leadership in general from Martin Luther King Jr., Frederick Douglass, you name it, is that they have the ability to take a bad situation and turn it into a good situation. So I think he would encourage us not to despair. think about it. Can we get any worse than ISIS? So like the road's like up from here. Like it's hopefully we can't get worse than that. Can we get worse than like extreme xenophobia and Islamophobia? Hopefully not. So it's like everything hopefully looks positive. So I think he would encourage us to be not naive, to be concerned about those things, but then also to see that, from here it's basically moving forward.
In your lectures, you stay current with pop culture. You make references to things like Breaking Bad. Now, why do you feel making such references to pop culture is important?
Took a picture with Drake.
Yeah.
Took a picture with Drake.
Really?
Well, I think that popular culture is a mirror of, a lot of the arts are mirrors of people's spiritual places. So I think that it's a language that needs to be used to communicate sometimes messages effectively. It's so, this is the age of leisure. People have access to leisure in ways that were unheard of before. So it's an important mechanism to communicate with others. And it creates commonality as well.
In your lecture that you just had here at the Hilton, you mentioned in your lecture the Heal the Hood concept. Now talk to us a little bit more about that.
Right. About 3 or 4 years ago in Boston, we started something called Heal the Hood that was designed for emergent delinquents within the Muslim community. So it recognized spiritual needs, financial needs, and educational needs, as well as social needs. It wasn't altogether successful. Maybe it was ahead of its time to some degree, but it did keep a number of people out of potentially being in jail or being hurt or killed. So it was successful to some degree.
Thank you once again for joining us. We're very honored to have you here, Imam Webb. We really appreciate it, and we're very, very happy that you have come to London and honored us. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Welcome to the new McMaster Chevrolet. We've recently expanded to serve you better and now offer a 45 minutes or less lube, oil and filter service. Our selection of over 330 new and pre-owned vehicles will give you plenty of choice when selecting your next vehicle. And our team of highly trained GM certified technicians will ensure your vehicle runs smoothly day in and day out. See what all the buzz is about. Make your move to McMaster today.
Welcome back to the show. Let's check out a little bit of Imam Suhaib's lecture. We're really excited about it.
It's an incredible opportunity and extremely exciting to be here to talk about the Southfield project. And let's put it in perspective. This is a historic moment for your community. You're on the cusp of greatness. You're looking over the cliff, and in front of you is the future. And while that's extremely exhilarating, at the same time it can seem extremely daunting. Western Muslims, whether down south or here in Canada, are faced with a number of very similar challenges. There's a number of intersections between the two communities. And one of them is the generation divide that many of us are aware of. Secondly is the explosion, metaphorically, as the sergeant is here, metaphoric explosion in numbers of Muslims. Muslims tend to have great marriages, so we have like 7 or 8 kids in each household, and that is leading to demands on institutional demands, which are stretching the capacity of what were once basically created to be simple houses of worship. So what that means is that we're going to need to offer services outside of the traditional model of a mosque. And I'll give you an example of this. When I moved to Boston, first time I'd ever been imam of quote-unquote like a mega mosque, 70,000 square foot building. It's like a shopping mall, right? And my third day into my tenure as a servant of that community, a young man walks in my office with a problem which Azhar had ill-equipped me to handle. which my degree in education had ill-equipped me to handle. It immediately forced me to ask some very serious questions about the mission, responsibility, and role of mediating institutions, if you will, church institutions, mosque institutions, in the face of this growing community. He brought a problem to me that I had never seen before, ever in the history of serving in the Muslim community for 16 years. So it forced me to do an evaluation of my own skill set, the community's skill set, and then to think about the response of the community to what was proposed, and that was that we started a clinic in the mosque for emotional and psychological help. Right? It's not something that you would think most mosques deal with. When I came to Boston, in the neighborhood that I lived in, we had a large number of Muslim youth involved in what would be considered like emergent delinquency. Gang membership, drugs, some of them had spent time in juvenile hall. So we had to react as a community. Azhar had not equipped me to teach these kids like usul al-fiqh, right? It's not like, hey, yo, what's going on, man? You're on the corner, you want to study usul al-fiqh? Like, that's not gonna fly. You know, J-Dog and D-Log are not really caring about Al-Baydawi and Razi's arguments over ta'lil al-ahkam bil-masalih al-mu'tabar. They're not really concerned about that. So we started a program called Heal the Hood, where we didn't meet in the mosque, we met in local coffee shops where Muslim youth used to gather and smoke marijuana. And I hear some of you like, but, you know, I'm happy to say that more than 20 or 30 of those young people were brought out of gang membership. They went and did their GED, which is your high school equivalent examination in America. And some of them now are, hopefully with Obama's new plan, they are in community colleges. The point is, that's not what you think about when you go to be an imam of an institution, right? And oftentimes when I've been given job offers, you know, I look at the job description and people basically who actually write just tell us what you want to do. There's very little vision. There's very little insight or thought into thinking. So you have an incredible opportunity because London, historically, outside of having the best food in all of the Americas, if you will, because of your Lebanese population. I personally like Holothia, no offense. I roll with the Egyptians. Exactly. Okay, I just did all that on purpose. Right? Because deep down inside, it's about biscuits and gravy for me. Remember Oklahoma? I'm sure I'm the only one here who can clap for Oklahoma. Canadians are so nice, it's true. You're really nice. American audiences are like, you're like, just all bubbly and Canadian. It's like the Great White North on SCTV. So, the point that I'm trying to make here, and I just did this on purpose, I just did something that you wouldn't expect an imam to do. I did something completely outside the box that got your attention. It was all a setup, I'm sorry. The reason that I did that is to show you that sometimes you're going to have to start thinking outside of the box. And you are at a historical moment in this traditionally wonderful city of London where you have a great, proud immigrant community who's established some incredible institutions, but now the needs, demands, and concerns of younger generations of Muslims are actually very different, although there are some shared universals. So with the Springfield Project, you have the opportunity to be creative, to think outside of the box, to do things different, to speak to younger generations, to the emergent Muslim community, just like we had to try to do in Boston, what Imam Zia at Makespace is doing in Washington, D.C., what you see Hussein McCandon doing in San Jose, and what you see, for example, Rami and Iman doing in Chicago. You have this incredible opportunity. And really, you should be able to appreciate the historical moment that God has blessed you with. We believe that providence is a gift from Allah. That's why the present is called the present, because it's a gift.
Welcome back to the Muslim View. We're continuing with Imam Webb, the Imam of the Islamic Society of Boston.
There's a number of points that we should take as universals in dealing with a target audience. Number one is everyone potentially has good in them. You know, unfortunately, we have this real negative stereotype To the point where, like, our good people could make mistakes and they become bad, right? So there'll be like some famous imam, he says something people don't agree with, and now he's the worst person. So like 20 years of, or 30 years or 40 years of great investment in the community are like wiped away off the windshield of the community like a flattened mosquito. Whereas there is this 20 years of great work. Whereas if you look at the Prophet, peace be upon him, it's different. Can you kabbir hasanat? You know, he used to magnify the people's good deeds. فَمَنْ يَعْمَلْ مِثْقَالَ ذَرَّةٍ خَيْرًا يَرَهُ. Whoever does a small good will see it. And sometimes this affects our parenting, like how we deal with our children. Our children can do nothing right. Whereas in fact, the smallest acts of good, we should acknowledge them. And the Quran teaches us something very different. Look in Medina. In Medina, in the early days of Medina, there were a lot of hypocrites and a few believers. There were only 67 Muslims in Mecca. Can you imagine in Mecca? It wasn't like if there was a Twitter in Arabia, Islam would not be like top 10. It would be like camels, shu'ara, poets, you know, and things like this. It wasn't Islam. It wasn't the cool thing to be a Muslim. So when the Prophet, peace be upon him, comes to Mecca, he has 67 companions, and Medina a few more. So at that time, the hypocrites were actually greater than the believers. But when Allah talks about the believers in the Quran, even though they were small in number, this is brilliant, subhanAllah, He makes it seem like they're millions. This is marketing. كَمَا آمَنَ النَّاسُ, as the believers say. No, as people say. As if to show you that there were so many believers that they were like the dominant majority, so we call them nas. But when he talks about the hypocrites who were more than the believers, he uses min al-tab'idiyya, wa min al-nasi. A few people are hypocrites, although it's the opposite. To magnify good and not to be negligent of potential harms and evil, but to not let evil and negativity dominate us. As the Prophet ﷺ said, Bashiru wa la tunaffiru. You know, give good news and don't make people flee. In another narration of this prophetic tradition in Bukhari, sakinu, you know, tranquilize people, make people happy, make them feel good. The community has inverted this, right? We are hyper insecure, hyper concerned culturally about certain things. As new converts, we're extremely sensitive about our place in the community, so we're all basically really edgy. We're like someone who didn't have coffee for like a month. And we have this massive caffeine addiction. So we're like, boom. So someone does something good, khalas, no big deal. Someone does something bad, yes, right? It's over. Now, that's important because as an ethos, we're taught as Muslims to see good in everybody potentially. All of us here have read books on the life of Muhammad, his seerah. And there's not only great lessons to be derived from the stories found therein, but in the tabweeb of the mu'allifin, you know, how the books were actually organized by scholars early on, there's a philosophy in the organization of those books. So, for example, think about it when we study the seerah. The first chapter is always about the lineage of Sayyid al-Awwaleen, of Prophet Muhammad, his nasab sharif, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. But then what's the next chapter? It's always the same thing. What is it? Who knows? After his lineage, what's the next chapter? Always the same thing. Every single book. Is what? Sifat of who? Qualities of who? The qualities of Arabs. What Arabs are being talked about in that chapter? Salihin, Awliyaullah, Al-Muqarrabeen. Are you talking about the qualities of the best Arabs? Or was it the qualities of the worst, straight up, crazy, cray-cray, Bedouin Arabs? So what does that teach us? That teaches us that because this chapter is talking about the good qualities of bad people, that should empower us, wherever we are as an institution, whatever we decide our purpose is, that as an ethos, we see good in people. And we seek to be not empowering. I don't like the language of empowering because that implies like, I'm good, you're not good, so I empower you. But we should be vehicles of goodness. We should ease goodness. We should allow people to achieve their best. They asked John Calipari, the coach of the University of Kentucky, it's like a professional basketball team, right? They're beating people by like 76 points. It's incredibly insane. So they asked him, how were you able to gather these young men who are incredibly talented, who next year will go to probably the NBA and not play for Toronto? And you guys are too good already. Kyle Lowry's a beast. And he gave a beautiful answer. He said, I sell them on the fact that with me, you can reach your potential. That with me, you'll reach your potential. Oftentimes as institutions, we shut down creativity. We're scared of creativity. We're scared of people reaching their potential. Whereas it was our prophet, peace be upon him, who welcomed a new convert who had the idea, as I mentioned today at lunch, to build a trench around Medina. He welcomes creativity. The minbar of the prophet came from the Habashis, came from the Ethiopians, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So it's not only creativity, but it's creativity from different areas. So he sees good in people. So the institution has this mission, and then secondly, it's about opening up the doors at wabul khayr. Opening up the doors of good for people, not necessarily using the language of we're empowering you, we're teaching you. No. We'll get to that in a minute.
Welcome back to the Muslim View. We're going to continue with more of Imam Webb. Welcome back to the show.
Not 3 or 4 people like Soprano-esque in nature, Tony and the homies meeting at a restaurant somewhere and making decisions for the entire community. And I was happy to hear that here you actually hired an imam through like the town hall system. The response that you get initially is, oh, we're not ready for that. Well, you're never going to be ready for it if you don't try. My father taught me in Oklahoma how to ride a bicycle. You know how? He put me on a bike and he just shoved me. And I fell, and I cut my knees up, and my mother was losing her mind. And my father was like, go in the house. It's like a great sitcom. Go in the house. But after about the 6th time, and a tremendous amount of blood, I learned how to ride a bicycle. And my father was like, that's my boy, see? I knew you could do it. I feel horrible watching you ride a bike. My grandfather taught me to swim in the country. I'm not encouraging you to do this because I know we're in a different era. This was in the 80s. Took me to a pond and threw me in the pond and started walking the other direction. And I was like, but I don't know how. And he's like, you'll figure it out. Lo and behold, there's Michael Phelps. What I'm trying to make is that we have to trust each other to make mistakes. We don't trust each other to make mistakes. So, oh my God, we got this big argument. Oh, people raising their voices in the mosque. You know what? Isn't it great to know that people are passionate about their community? Like, I'm happy to hear that people are actually arguing and worried about the state of their community. I don't really see that as a negative. Didn't Abu Bakr and Omar like go at it on issues? But they kept the relationship. So I believe that moving forward, institutions, and I push for this now. I pulled out of institutions because I struggled with some of the political underpinnings of institutions, especially as it plays out back home for people who are from over there. It's not back home for me, and that is allowed to change the institution. I have a problem with that. We have to be concerned about where we are, and that should help us strengthen where other people are at. But we started doing a town hall form of leadership. So, sisters, you want to have a partition or not? Hey, I'm pro-choice. I'm pro-choice on the issue. Roe versus Wade. And we said, let sisters decide. So there was a vote, 50-50. Some wanted it, some didn't, so we have both.
We want to thank the MAC Association for helping us put this interview together. And also, we want to thank you for joining us today. We had a very, very good show, and we hope to see you next time. I'm your host, Sarah Darsha.